Hi,
Can you hear me?
I can. Am
Awesome.
I?
How are you today, Symphony?
I'm doing all right. How to turn my? Looks like I'm upside down or sideways.
No worries. I'm good with that if you're good with that, or you can switch maybe your direction around.
Oh no, I lost myself. Oh,
There you are.
there we go.
Awesome. How are you today?
Nervous.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right in. So I'm gonna start a little bit with just talking a little bit about what brings us all together here. So who we are at Word Improv, I'm sorry, is we are a community of writers who are united by our passion for writing and a common challenge, Word Improv. So what exactly is Word Improv? Word Improv is a writing challenge where writers write a story using a set of new words. A story is broadly defined to include a tale, poem, skit, or other things. There is no character minimum or limit, and you can learn new words and participate in Word Improv by following @WordSleuth on Instagram. So, what is the purpose of this interview? This is part of a series of Pass-the-Baton interviews where contributors to the Word Improv Challenge interview one another so that our community and audience learns about Word Improv writers and their work. I was interviewed 2 weeks ago. Today I get to interview Symphony, which I'm really excited about. So speaking of which, let me introduce Symphony here. Symphony Hale is a native California writer, chaser of dreams, wiper of messes, mom of 4.75. She's currently working on her debut novel, A Spark Amongst the Ashes. It's the first in a 2, possibly 3-part series. She's also in the process of putting together a soon-to-be-released poetry compilation, Staccato Rhythms of an Iridescent Heart, and she's extremely excited to be getting both of these out into the world. She can be found on Twitter and Instagram at symphony_hale. Her website, www.symphonyhale.com, is currently under construction, and there she'll be exhibiting. Is it ready?
It's ready. It went live last night.
Live. So you can go straight to symphonyhale.com and learn more about Symphony after this interview. And there she'll be exhibiting some of her writing along with offering her ghostwriting, proofreading, and editing services. So now we'll kick it over to Symphony real quick and start this with a Word Improv story that she has chosen to share with us today.
Sorry, my camera's going all over the place.
Oh, no worries. Take your time.
Okay, so this one was from 3 or 4 ago. Should I just start reading it, I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It was wistful and foolish on my part to think he could ever truly love me. A philanderer at his core, his very essence filled the air with a sickly saccharine stench of his egregious activities. I was nothing more than a notch in his bedpost, a number on his phone to call whenever the urge struck him. I was tired of being treated like a doormat, tired of being treated as though my friends didn't matter, as though my feelings didn't matter, as though I didn't matter. But that doesn't mean I wanted him dead. Even if I did, I never would have had the courage to act on such a notion, right? I'm sorry, Detective, you said he died? I swallowed down the bile rising up from my throat. That's correct, ma'am. Where were you last night between midnight and 2 a.m.? His gaze is piercing, and I focus my eyes on the tiny fleck of lint near his tie. You think I had something to do with it? The shock in my voice is palpable. Again, I swallow hard, the contents of my stomach threatening to make a reappearance. We know the kind of man he was, quite the braggadocio. Rumor has it you might be one of his many, for lack of a better word, conquests. My eyes fly to his as anger seethes from my core. A soulful expression is painted across his chiseled features, pity lacing throughout his amber gaze. I really must be getting back to my bees. I was right in the middle of... You have apiarian responsibilities, he asked curiously. I do. I dabble with the bees myself. Mind if I check out your hives? I want to say no, to send him on his way, and to be done with this entire day. But I acquiesce, motioning him to follow. We're halfway through the living room when he stops suddenly, eyes focused intently on the battle axe above the mantel. You poleaxe, he asked. He questions, turning to stare at me. No, it was my father's. He left it to me when he passed away. Interesting, he muses. Our victim was killed with a weapon of such caliber.
That's a cool story.
Thank you.
I like that one. I was really impressed when I first saw it because I feel like it's dark, but it's also very emotional. You know, there's a lot of I mean, it's dark. It's kind of humor. It's kind of humorous on certain levels in the kind of like in the twists there at the end. But at the same token, it's got a lot of reality in it, and a lot of the reality of male female interactions. So I'm really impressed with that story. So I mean, that said, you're obviously a very talented writer. I've been very impressed with following you on Twitter in particular, and looking at your Twitter, looking at your tweets come up. And every time I see a new one, I'm always excited to read them. They're so rich, and the language that you use is so wonderful. Are you a professional writer, or do you just write as a hobby?
Not professional yet, so hopefully. I've got my books coming out hopefully by summertime is the goal, and I'm actually working on starting my own publishing imprint. It's going to be via Rose Publishing, and there is a page for it on my website, but information will be coming soon. So in that way, I'll be self-publishing, but I can have my own imprint on my books. So
that's great. I run my own imprint as well for my stuff. Indie Authors Unite. It's wonderful. I really support that. When did you start writing?
Forever. I've had stories going through my head, just characters and stories just kind of bombarding on montage all the time of characters just talking and playing out scenarios, and for as long as I can remember. And so it wasn't until I was in 8th grade that I kind of thought that maybe my words could really mean something to someone. We had read Where the Red Fern Grows in English class, and I had wrote a poem for it for one of the assignments. And my teacher, she had put a note on it when she returned it to me with the grade, and said that it had made her cry, and that she wanted to read it in front of the class for everyone. So that was one of the first times I really thought, oh wow, I can really touch somebody with my words. But I always kind of started things and didn't really finish them, and had halfway, partway stories. And it wasn't until I started A Spark Amongst the Ashes that I really thought, oh wow, I might actually be able to do this. So
I thought it was interesting. You said you have characters running. You've always had characters kind of running through your head. So do you start in like A Spark Amongst the Ashes? Did that start with characters, or did that start with a story? Or what is your kind of initial inspiration for starting something?
It can be just a single word sometimes. Sometimes it's a situation. Spark Amongst the Ashes was kind of, there was a scenario that played out in my head, and I thought, I wonder what else might happen with this. And so I just started writing, and I really write how I feel. I put a lot of myself into everything. So however I'm feeling at that point in time, or whatever I'm experiencing is something that I put into everything. So
yeah, I remember at one point in time realizing that when I was writing a story, there were like at least 3 different stories that were going on. There was the story that I was telling. There was the story as I was experiencing that story as I was telling it. And then there was kind of the real story I was telling, which was whatever I was actually feeling that was being expressed through this narrative that I was inventing at the time. Does that make sense?
yes.
Does that sound like, does that, what you were saying inspired me to think of that. I was wondering if that's kind of similar to how you approach writing or not.
Yeah, I think so. I really just, I can be in the car and a song will come on, and just a single word from that song will kind of give me some kind of feeling, and I'll just go from there and just turn it into something that's way more than a single word. So
Sure. And you have a novel coming out and a collection of poems coming out. Do you consider yourself more of a poet or a novelist, or you just kind of do whatever? I do whatever personally.
most of my poetry is prose poetry.
Okay.
But I've always dabbled with both. I had quite a bit of collection of poems when I was in high school, and started several different stories as well at the same time. And so I really kind of both all the time.
Cool. I wanted to, there were some questions that came in through Twitter, because I know that you put out a call for questions from some of your followers.
Yes.
And there were 3 in particular that I have right here that I want to make sure we cover in case that follower is listening. And they're also just good, interesting questions. So the first one, just word for word, is what inspired you to write the way you do? The style and the power in your writing especially. It's like a force exploding out in words, which I really agree with. I feel that same way when I read your writing. So yeah, what inspires you to write specifically the way you do?
Mostly just feelings and experiences, especially with the VSS posts. It's just a single word, and it's so amazing to watch all of the posts that come up from that word, because everybody experiences it or sees it as something different. And so I really feel like when I hear something or when I see something, however that touches me at that specific time, or whatever feelings it invokes from my experiences. But I really do put pretty much every part of me in my writing. So it's mostly just myself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I always put a lot of myself in my writing too, and reading your posts have really inspired me to really consider doing the VSS posts. I don't know if I've done many VSS posts in my life, or tweets in my life, and I'm so blown away by yours. I really like what your followers said here, that your writing is like a force exploding out in words. The second question we had was, do you get inspiration from various things, or is it some event that took place, or is it just taking a topic and writing a story around it? I guess you kind of just answered that more or less. That's more or less what you do, right? You just kind of take a feeling, you get inspired by something, you take a feeling. But this next question I think is very interesting. And they asked, how does one keep coming up with things to inspire our writing or words? Does it just happen, or does it take effort? Basically, they're wondering, do you get writer's block at all? And is writer's block because of a lack of idea on the topic, or is it a lack of inspiration, in your opinion?
So a lot of the words I don't have to think about very hard. I'll look at it and then it just will come to me pretty quickly. There have been some that Juliette Willows and I were really good friends, and I'll send her the word and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't. I just am not feeling this today." So sometimes I will have to sit and think about it for a little while, but other times it's just right there already. And there's been a few times when I've started writing something and then the word was posted, and I'll be like, "Oh, well, that fits perfectly with what I was already working on." So sometimes I'll already have it before it's even out there. So
Right. So you'll already have an inspiration, and the word kind of melds with that, and you can kind of just merge the two together. I like that. I like that a lot. I've done different writers' games over the course of my life, and I've always found that things tap into I'm a big believer in the unconscious, and so I believe that things tap into my unconscious mind in ways that I didn't imagine they would, and I feel like that's a lot of the inspiration for writing in general.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, of the word improv stories that you have out there that you've written, because you've written a fair number of them, why did you choose the one that you did for today's interview?
Um, that was kind of one of my favorites.
Uh-huh.
um, I I guess because I kind of feel that one close to that one. I probably should admit that. But yeah, that just for some reason was always one of my favorites that I did. And I've only done about half a dozen or so when Sleuth had approached me in Instagram and asked if I would be interested in participating. And so sometimes, you know, the words will come out and I'll look at him as he's releasing them, and then I'll kind of have an idea in my head already, and then when all the rest of them are done, it'll come together. And other times, depending on how busy I've been, I might not look at them until the last minute. But that one was one that it really came quickly to me, and I just really felt it kind of on a personal level. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could really feel that one. Like I said before, when you read it, like I feel like it's it's kind of a mystery narrative of sorts, but the reality behind it is very real and very much things that I think people feel and experience on a very regular basis. And that's what was so powerful to me about it, that it really captured me. Is there anything in particular about it? Like you said, you just like it. I mean, what exactly is it that you like about that one so much? Anything you want to share? Or?
well, I think we've all been jilted in love before, so
Sure.
there's those feelings of wanting revenge and wanting to validate the relationship or your feelings, or feeling scorned, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and love is one of the timeless topics of writing, and a jilted love is not a fun feeling at all. And the desire for revenge is very real. So your novel, I want to get back to that. What are you willing to share about that? I know I'm always hesitant to share things about my books because I want people to read them.
right.
But just I mean, obviously share whatever you want. But I'm just curious, what's it about? What's the novel?
So it is about a young woman in her early 20s, and she is trying to put her life back together after a pretty big tragedy, and just trying to figure out how to survive and how to live and how to kind of heal from that loss and that she experienced. And then there's the other character. So my blurb that I'll read my blurb that I put on my website.
Okay, that sounds great.
That will help explain it quite a bit more. So, how do you pick yourself up and learn to live again when tragedy shatters your entire world? Aisling Ahern has been devastated by a heart-wrenching loss, a shell of her former self, and unable to survive in the place she once called home. She leaves everything behind in search of some way to start living again. Nicholas Jeffries understands all too well what heartbreak and guilt can do to a person. When Aisling walks into his life, his chance for redemption has finally come. But when the secrets that haunt them both refuse to stay buried, and the past that connects them ravages the present, will love be strong enough to save them both? So
that's powerful.
There's a little bit of mystery. There's a connection from their past that they have that she doesn't know about, and when it all comes to light, it's a pretty big deal. So
that sounds like a powerful story. The notion of kind of putting yourself back together after a loss, that's something I've been dealing with more and more in my more recent writing. my early writing was all about loss itself. And I came to this conclusion eventually that kind of that like tragedy happens and anybody can, and tragedy is something that we all share together on this planet. And that actually I have a line from a poem that I wrote it many years ago, this line, but it resonated with me. It's resonated with me more and more as I've gotten older. And I think it kind of sums up what I think about a lot of that stuff now, which is just that don't tell me anymore why I want to die. Tell me why, in spite of everything I've seen, I still want to stay alive. And it sounds to me like maybe your novel is dealing with that same type of idea.
Yeah.
Does that seem? Yeah, that's cool. That's one of the great things about writing and art, I feel like, is to give us reasons to stay here amidst the tragedy and loss. And I certainly find it in my writing itself, and I want to convey that to people more and more with what I create. And then so that you're planning on that novel you're planning on putting out over the summer, you said?
That is the goal, yes.
That's
originally the goal. I had planned on early or late spring, early summer. Mm-hmm. But I had to set it aside for a little bit, personal reasons, and so I'm really going to try to hopefully get it out by at least mid to late summer. So.
And what's been your process for the publishing? I know a lot of people tend to be very interested in that. When I tell them that I'm a self-published author, or that I run my own imprint, or indie DIY author, people are always very interested in, like, what's been your process, not just the writing process itself, but the post-writing process to prepare it for publication. Have you been doing anything, sharing it with anybody, things like that sort of stuff?
Well, Juliette Willows is nagging at me to let her read it. She's mentioned a few times that she can't wait to get it in her hands, and she will be the first one to read it. She's my heart and soul. She is just my best friend, and she's amazing. She's a writer too, and her stuff is just so wonderful. And we do a lot of stuff together on Twitter with our posts, and we started doing a before and after, where I do the first one and then she does an after version of it, kind of flips it around to give a little bit of a different feeling. And
oh, that's cool.
But as soon as I'm ready, she's going to be the one to tell me if it's worth it or not.
Yeah, you need somebody you can trust to look at your work. That's for sure. Especially if you're an indie author, because, I do editing services. I believe you do that as well. And that can be very pricey for people. Although I think it's very much worth it. The amount of work that I produce, I really rely on friends and writing groups to get me through it, because it just costs so much money to get professional editing services. But as I said, I offer those. So it's not, it's not like I'm opposed to them at all. I just, and
that's the kind of stuff you don't want to slack on, because you want it to look professional. You want it to be a good product, and
for sure. And your covers do you have a designer for your covers already, or
not yet?
Okay.
No, but I've been kind of looking at covers that are on like different websites that are available, and I haven't quite found one that I really speaks to me just yet. So
sure, that's so when I first started doing indie publishing, I used all like template covers for my books, because I'd been down and out for a long time at that point in time and didn't have the money to invest in an actual cover producer. And then I got very lucky that my wife, who was my girlfriend when she first started designing covers, is actually a graphic designer and artist, and designs beautiful covers for my books. So that's made things very easy for me. But I agree. That's the first thing somebody's going to see, and they say not to judge a book by its cover. People are going to judge a book by its cover, so you want to be sure you find the right artist for your books, for sure.
Right.
And then Staccato Rhythms of an Iridescent Heart. What is do you have a release timeline for that one?
Around summer as well.
Okay.
kind of getting it all compiled together and seeing where it stands right now. And I want to do a few illustrations with it. All my posts, people who follow me on Twitter or Instagram, they see all my posts have pictures with them. But to actually put that many in it, it's going to be.
Wait a second. So do you
a little
do those?
much.
Do you do those pictures on your
Oh
Twitter
no, no, no,
posts?
no.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I
'Cause
always
those are beautiful.
credit the artist in the
Okay.
post to make sure everybody knows it is not me. I am not that talented at all. I lack in the drawing skills, but Juliette Starr is actually an artist, and so I was talking to her about possibly having her daughter do some illustrations for it to kind of
Oh, cool.
scatter throughout with the poems. So it's still in the works, but I think it's coming along pretty well. So.
And how far back do the poems that you're using in that stretch, are those recent, or are they is it kind of a compilation from your life, or?
It kind of a lot of my posts, a lot of things that I've written from a while ago, a lot of things that I'm writing now. So it's going to be a pretty big compilation of a lot of things. So
That sounds really exciting. Is it going to have that 8th grade poem that
that is definitely a 12-year-old poem. So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was really good for 12, and it was my teacher really liked it, but I'm not sure that it's publishable material. So
Sure. I have a bunch of stuff that I wrote when I was 12. I mentioned this in my interview the other week as well, that I've created a zine out of stuff that I wrote when I was in middle school that I fold up like a little note and give away at like readings that I give and stuff like that. They are very much what I wrote in middle school, though. Like, I would not sell them on I'll sell them for $1 at times if people, just to cover the cost of the paper if people want me to send them to them.
there we go.
But that's about it. So yeah, I definitely know that feeling. So both books will probably be coming out in the summer. And how long have you been working on A Spark Amongst the Ashes? How far back does that stretch?
That is actually I started it in 2015.
Okay.
And I got halfway through it, and then life is a mess, and so I kind of set it aside and shelved it for a while, and then I picked it back up in 2018 and finished it, and then kind of got afraid of it.
Got afraid of it, you said?
I got afraid of it. I didn't know if it was something I really wanted people to read, or if it was something I really wanted out in the world, and so I set it aside again, and life gets messy, so I just kind of didn't really think about it much for a while, and so it's just been since about August last year that I really started kind of reading through it again and looking at it again and trying to figure out exactly how I want to put it out and if I'm happy enough with it to put it out. And so
I know what you mean. I feel like it takes a great deal of courage to be an artist or an author of any sort, and just to put our ideas down on paper and arrange them in such a way that people can read them. But then it's a whole other level of courage to actually put your work out there in the world. And I personally feel like I've never been traditionally published, so I don't know if this is. I'm sure it's just as nerve-wracking for traditional publishers, but I feel like as an indie publisher, like so much of it is kind of like so much of it rides on me in the end. That like I didn't have a bunch of gatekeepers saying that this was something they want people to that they want to put out there for me. So I feel like I can get very nervous about what I'm doing and what I'm creating, and what I'm sharing with people, and I just feel like it's so courageous for all of us to actually put our stuff out there. I'm always impressed with every author I come across who is putting their stuff out there. Every artist who's putting their stuff out there. And you know, my wife, who's an artist as well, as I mentioned, she always kind of makes fun of me because she says there's nothing you don't like, and I'm like, I'm just so impressed that people are willing to create this stuff, and so impressed that people are doing this, that it's hard for me to dislike most of what people create. That's just where I stand on stuff, you know.
Right.
And I think that I'm looking forward to seeing your work out there. Because as I said, I've been so impressed with your Twitter, with the tweets I've seen and the Instagram posts I've seen. Do you have any more projects planned for the future, or is that kind of taking up all your time right now?
Well, that's taking up all the time right now, but there is a second book to Spark that I already have an idea for and a title and a few random paragraphs here and there, but so I really would like to get that one out at least, and then there are several others that I have started and stopped that I feel like I at some point would like to get them out there. So I'm hoping that I can kind of get into a spot where I can start putting quite a bit out. So I think I need to get out of my head a little bit before.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it goes, right? I mean, there's so many. I have so many ideas and so many projects, and it just takes time to get things done. And I always have to build in time to give up on projects and start them over again, and get discouraged and think this is never going to be anything. So why am I doing it even? And eventually finish something. And I was really interested. You said you have some kind of random paragraphs for the sequel to A Spark Amongst the Ashes. Do you write in a linear fashion, or do you kind of write piecemeal, or how do you do it?
I write with whatever pops into my head at that moment in time. I am not a plotter at all.
Okay.
I can't sit and outline anything because I start writing. I get sidetracked, and so, but I have the idea and I have all the main points and where I want it to go. So it's sometimes I'll kind of start at the beginning and then I'll think, oh wait, well this is going to happen here, so I'll get that down before it leaves my head and I forget about it. And so yeah, definitely a pantser.
Sure, and that's really inspiring to me. In my interview last week, we were talking a lot about plotting versus pantsing, and I said that I've always been a plotter, but I've been working a lot more on pantsing my books lately over the past probably 3 books. And when I was interviewed the other week, I was back working on this plotted book that I've been working on for about a decade. But I feel like there's a vibrancy and creativity that my writing has when I don't outline the whole thing and have this vision of what it's supposed to be. And I love that. The deeper I go in, kind of like allowing myself to see where the world takes me in my creation, the more I feel like that's kind of the seed of creation, right? Like that's creativity, I think, is just kind of like, is that you create something here, you create something there, and then you put it together and you realize there's something missing in the middle and you've got to build that out. I feel like I go for walks through my neighborhood a lot, and we have a path through the woods here in my neighborhood. And I feel like in that way, art is just like the earth itself, right? That like we're creating like trees, like fighting for the light and stuff like that. So that's really inspiring to me to hear you say that as well, and that's how you create. I feel like for me, it's a goal to create that way and create that way more fully and completely, because I think I don't know. I mean, you said that you just get sidetracked, which is why you never do
Right.
you never really do outlines.
I've tried to sit and write an outline a few times, but I get sidetracked because I'll get to a part and it's like, well, I'm just going to start writing this because it needs to come out now because I know it in my head, and if I wait, then it's not going to be what it is right at that point in time. And so and my characters are very real. Well, I think for most writers, their characters are real, and so my characters will take me in places that I had no idea we were headed that direction. And so so sometimes it's surprising to see where it goes. Even though I do have this idea in my head of where it's going to go, sometimes it'll veer off in a completely different direction. So
I find that interesting as well. You know, I mean, I feel like there's a freedom in allowing your characters to kind of tell the story for you, that I'm learning as I get further and further away from plotting my stories out. And so bring back to characters also, are your characters based on real people, or are they characters that are completely out of your head, or are they a combination of the two? I'm curious, how do they get this life of their own for you?
Some of them might have similarities to real people, but not many. My main character in Spark is a lot like me, so there's a lot of me in her, but she's surprised me a few times with with how she's handled things a little better than I would, but sometimes it's from a dream that I have weird dreams all the time, and so a character will pop up in a dream that kind of takes on a life of their own, and so it's they're very much their own person.
That's interesting when you mention dreams, because I do a lot of lucid dreaming, and I've gotten into the habit of asking my dream characters about themselves when I get there. Like in my dreams, I will ask them like who are you really? What is your real name? Things like that. And it gives me more, it becomes increasingly obvious to me that I can control a lot in my dreams, but I can't control the characters in my dreams, even when I dream lucidly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is similar to to creating a character in fiction. It is like these dream characters that my most recent novel, which is unpublished, I'm still editing it, but it started based on a character. The main character was based on me, but eventually I realized that this character was much better than me. Like this was like this was the me that I wish I'd been at these points in time, and that's very interesting to me. Like how these, where do these stories exist is kind of my question some of the time, right? Like they feel so real. Where do they exist? Do they exist in my mind, or do they exist in a world beyond my mind?
Yeah.
I mean, that just kind of blows my mind. And in your Staccato Rhythms of an Iridescent Heart, the poetry collection that's coming out, you said it's mainly prose poems, or it's primarily prose poems?
Primarily prose, yes.
And so, do you have characters in that as well, or are those more feelings, or what can people expect to read in that book as well?
Those are more feelings, definitely. But I think everybody can probably see themselves in some of them or all of them. The blurb that I put on my website for that was a heart-wrenching journey through love and loss, heartbreak and betrayal, through redemption and undoing, through finding the strength to survive when every cell in your body is begging for the end. When the world turns against you and the voices in your head are screaming for reprieve, love finds a way to forgive and heal. So it's very much through that heartbreak, through that healing, through that rage and anger and love, and finding a way to kind of come out on the other end.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I feel like we've kind of brought the conversation sort of full circle here with that statement. I'm wondering if maybe we should start wrapping up. What do you think? Do you have more stuff you would like to cover? Like things is there anything I didn't ask you about that you want people to know about with regard to your writing or yourself?
No, I'm just a mom.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm just a mom with voices in her head and 4 kids, and well, the 4.75 is I have 4 of my own.
Okay.
And my 19-year-old, his friend is living with us, so he's my half a kid, and then we have a little Chihuahua, so that's the quarter of a kid.
Gotcha. I was curious about that. I meant to ask about that, but I forgot about that. Where the 0.75 came from. That's cool. That's really great. I always liked the moms that had another kid kind of living with them. That's always cool. And I'm a dad, although my kids I think are a lot younger than yours. I know they are if you say that you have a 19-year-old.
Yeah, my youngest
But
just turned 15 last week, so.
right, right. And happy birthday to your youngest.
Thank
And
you.
I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, was that you know, I mean, for me, I feel like I've learned so much in the few years that I've been a parent, and I was an older parent, so it's not like I know what I knew before I was a parent, and I've learned so much from being a parent that it has really affected my writing has gone in a whole new direction than what I was wanting to create or trying to create before I became a parent. So I feel like it's not trivial that you are a mom of 4.75 and creating the way you create. That I feel like there's a lot of soul searching and honesty that goes into parenting, that can come out in our writing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
yeah, definitely.
yeah, and it's just a powerful, parenting is a powerful world. As a person who became a parent in their 40s, I can't speak highly enough about it. But yeah, so I think that's maybe about it. So I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been really exciting for me. I was really looking forward to talking with you, and I've really enjoyed our conversation, Symphony.
Thank you.
And so I want to make sure that everybody knows that you will be doing another interview in 2 weeks.
Yes, I get to be the interviewee. I get your place next.
Yes, exactly. It's an exciting place to be in, and a lot of fun. So I want to invite everybody who's watching and listening to learn new words and participate in word improv by following @WordSleuth on Instagram. And if they want to get involved in the Pass-the-Baton interviews, they are welcome to DM WordSleuth. Everybody should check out your new website, symphonyhale.com.
Yes.
And if they don't follow if they don't, after they go to your website, they should follow you on Twitter, Symphony_Hale, and on Instagram, Symphony_Hale. Is there anywhere else people need to keep an eye out for you?
Not right at the moment. I was kind of anti-social media, so it took me a long time to get on anything. And I got bullied into the Instagram thing by Juliet, because when everyone thought Twitter was exploding and crumbling to the ground, she told me I needed a backup. So
yeah, I was convinced Twitter was crumbling there for a minute. Like I felt like I actually stopped using Twitter for a little while there, and yeah, anyway, but I'm back on Twitter.
Good.
So. Good. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you so much, Symphony. This has been a great experience for me. I hope it's been a nice experience for you and for everybody else who's listening.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.